Got your pod and lips on, brother?
I want to do it because it puts me in a place where I can love people. It's the best part of the job. So even if that comes with that negativity, it's still just a real honor to be a part of people's lives in that way.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Inside, a podcast where we get into the extraordinary minds and experiences of everyday people. I'm Jay, and with me, as always, is Adam. What's up, my man?
Hey, man. Not much going on. Just went on a big rafting adventure last weekend. But other than that, just kind of laying low up here on campus. What about you?
Sweet. Well, regular stuff, working at work, and also at home working on our deck.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Some repairs.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound too bad, does it? I mean, like I've seen some people do some decking work before, seen a couple YouTube videos on how to fix a deck, stuff like that.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Like, so you're like a deck expert? Like,
exactly.
Have you ever
those YouTube videos?
have you ever helped anybody?
Well, no,
kind of
but
like, what do you think? What kind of tools do you think you would need to like do some deck work, like refurbishing a deck?
Well, obviously, like, you do a tape measure, some nails, a shop vac,
right.
shingle gun,
yeah,
and maybe some insulation or
okay, stop. Like a shingle gun? Like really? Like you obviously don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of
about
BSing it there. I'm no Rachel Gibby when it comes to like a ramp build. Like I went on one with her one time and she showed me up. I never went back. She's just too out of my league.
Yeah, I mean, she really is like a super multi-talented woman. You know, I think like she's probably on my list of like the most incredible young people I know.
Hey, wait, what about me?
Well, Adam, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that.
All right, well, how about this? Here we go. What if we bring Gibby on and she can drop some construction knowledge on me because I don't know what I'm talking about, and she can help me figure out how to get onto the top incredible young people's list.
Oh, hey, man, I'm in.
Cool. Well, how about this? Let's take a quick break. We'll hear words from our fake sponsor, and then I'll get those pointers on how to be just as cool as she is.
Yeah. Good luck. Hey, Adam. What's going on, man? What are you up to?
Oh, man, just sipping one of those carbonated La Craps.
Oh, God, I hate sparkling water. I mean, it tastes like spit to me, man.
I mean, Jay, it's funny you say that because in some locations, people actually like the taste of sparkling spit water so much, they made a product for it.
What? You are kidding me. There's a product?
No. Yeah, introducing Cam Saliva Can. It's this kind of natural camel spit caught locally, fresh, and put immediately into a sustainable carbonation cycle, and then canned to give you that cool, refreshing spit taste with none of that harmful artificial flavors you get from other sparkling waters. It's just that sweet taste of camel saliva. But too often listeners just take our word for it. Let's hear what this week's guest has to say about Cam Saliva Can.
I used to hate carbonated water, but I discovered after a long hot day on the job site, there's nothing more refreshing in the mouth than slugging down a can of Cam Sylvia Cam.
Wow. Like, I knew camels were famous for spitting on people, but this is such a great way to take something gross and turn it into something delicious for the whole family, Adam.
Exactly, Jay. Order your Cam Saliva Can today, and if you call now, we'll throw in some carbonated horse sweat. Just pay separate shipping and handling. Order your Cam Saliva Can today.
Hey, Gibby, and welcome to The Inside. We are super pumped you're here. Yeah.
What's up? Yeah, long-time listener, long-time fan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The number one.
Yeah.
Well, Gibby, the way we like to do it here is just like jump right on in. So hold on. Here we go.
All right. Let's go.
So looking back at your life, you grew up in rural Eastern North Carolina. And you have like this really awesome, loving family who you're super close with, and you're lucky to have that, right? I mean, your mom was a teacher, and your father was a pastor, and at the normal career deciding age of 4 years old, like you thought you wanted to be a pastor too. So while your family was really supportive of your dreams and support you even now, right? Like you also felt like you were discouraged from this calling in your community because many there didn't believe it was something like a woman should be doing, as being a pastor. Um, so when did you become aware of this, and like what did that feel like?
Yeah, so I remember this moment really clearly, even now, because like you said, I was 4, and I was in the truck with my father. And apparently, in the days prior to that, I had met like a female missionary and female pastor that had been staying with my family. All I
Mm-hmm.
remember is just having this really clear idea of, oh, that's what I want to do. And so I looked at my dad and was like, I want to be a pastor when I grow up. That's what I want to do. And and as my dad, he'd always been really encouraging. So I expected some excitement, but instead, he looks at me, he goes, women don't do that.
Oh, man.
And at age 4, I must have been true because it was my dad. And so I gave up on it. But the reason for that was I grew up in a really conservative denomination that still doesn't ordain women. And so at that time, my father was watching his female colleagues be treated really badly or be kind of taken out of the church and different things like that. And so he didn't want that for me. Both my parents wanted us to have better jobs than they did, just because teaching and preaching is really hard. And I think they wanted me to have a lot more money so I could like buy a lot more stuff for them when I was older.
Exactly. The truth comes out.
Yeah. I think they wanted a really nice retirement. And I'm gonna give them the best I can, but I don't make that much.
So it's not that your dad wasn't supportive of you or whatever. He was maybe more trying to be protective, it sounds like.
Yeah, we've talked about it since then. And really in recent years, both my parents and my whole family in general has been really affirming of that calling. And it was because they didn't want me to be hurt by other people. Because like ministry is one of those professions where you can see people at their worst. And you can kind of get the brunt of their pain or their misconceptions. And so it can be really hard to do that job. But I want to do it because it puts me in a place where I can love people. It's the best part of the job. And so even if that comes with that negativity, it's still just a real honor to be a part of people's lives in that way.
Well, I'm really glad you're like helping other people in need, because like you've told us before this episode, unfortunately things kind of began to spiral down for you personally as you entered the college scene. There was just kind of a lot going on in your life you were wrestling with in your head, and you kind of felt that as a person who's committed to being a pastor, your faith was almost on edge. And there was one situation you told us about involving a car crash with that. Could you tell us a little bit more about that experience and what was going on then?
Yeah. It was a very interesting period of my life. I've grown up in an environment where I have been very loved. I've lived a life with a lot of privilege that other people haven't had. But as I started going into high school, my brain chemistry started changing. That's something we can't escape with mental illness. Sometimes it just happens to us. And so I became really severely depressed. I started to experience some symptoms of anxiety and things like that. And I just felt like the world was this really, as I was like leaving high school, it felt like the world was this really dark place where bad things can happen to you. And it felt like no one was caring about all those bad things, or there weren't enough people to care about them. And so therefore bad things keep happening. And so I got into this thought process of hopelessness, of feeling like there was kind of no way out, that no matter what I did in life, I would be miserable, because I was in a good place now and I was still miserable. So it felt like there was really no way up. And so in my senior year of high school, I was in a hurry to get somewhere and was driving in a dumb way and pulled out in an intersection and was hit on the behind the driver's seat on the driver's side of the vehicle I was driving, and the car spun, and I ended up landing in the same spot where there was a cross for a man who had died in that intersection, because it's a dangerous intersection in the area where I live, and someone had died there before, but I lived. There was no scratch, no injury. The vehicles did not walk away okay, but me and the other person did. And the thing about growing up, I think maybe religiously, or at least in a world where you don't really feel like you have a reason to be depressed, you don't want, or I did not want to kill myself, because I did not want that pain to be inflicted on my friends and family. I knew that they loved me as much as they could and were doing their best. And so I didn't want them to think that they hadn't done enough, but I was so miserable. I didn't want to be alive anymore. And so leading up to that car wreck, I had actually been praying a lot. If God, if you could just let me die, if I could just die in an accident, or if something bad could just happen to me, so that way people don't feel like it's their fault that I'm not here anymore. And so it makes me think of that Garth Brooks song where it's like, God's greatest gift is unanswered prayers. And sometimes I think that's true. And this certainly was that moment. And I should have gotten it. That should have been like this. And it is now this moment where I'm like, oh, that was God talking to me. And isn't this really interesting moment in my life? But I remember sitting on the side of that road as people came through that intersection, first responders, a teacher of mine, some of my friends, even the son of the man who had died at the intersection came through, and they all said, we're so glad that you're alive. It doesn't matter what happened here, that the car is totaled. People are just going to be really happy that you're alive. And I just remember that emptiness and this weight and numbness of not really being able to understand how people could feel that way about my situation. I felt so hopeless in that.
Yeah. And, I think we don't realize how many people are experiencing those kinds of feelings. I think it's a lot more than we know of, because it's kind of taboo, right? It's not okay to share that kind of stuff. And so I hope at least somebody who might hear this will hear you sharing this and think like, okay, it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to let people in. It's a big deal. So, it sounds like you weren't really looking for a faith community when you came to college, but like you found one anyway, right? And growing up in the tradition you grew up in, I remember you saying like this was the first time you heard someone in the church say that Jesus loves everyone and like loves them where they are. Would you describe a little bit about that community, and more specifically like how maybe that was different?
Yeah, the faith tradition I grew up in was much more conservative, and we read the same Bible studies that every Christian denomination reads. You read about Jesus meeting people where they're at and loving people and really displaying a radical hospitality towards every person. But the way I grew up, that love was presented very conditionally. There was an expectation of conforming to worship the same way everybody did, to serve in the same way that other people did. And if you didn't do that, the emotional and spiritual relationships that really can build you up at church start to be withheld from you. There's also just a danger in any kind of organization, but especially, it's especially toxic in faith communities where the personal politics of things can get in the way of doing good work. And if the work doesn't always look 100% effective or efficient or making money or something like that, if it's not always 100% serving the giver, then it felt like those efforts and causes were not as cared about.
So,
And
so how
so,
was that different? Then what did you experience that was different then?
so that's what I grew up in, and when I came to Western, that's why I wasn't looking for a faith community. It
Mm.
hurt, and it didn't really feel like Jesus was there. And so I was over it and just kind of trying to live my life when I came to Western. But I started playing rugby, trying to look for something new. And then a couple of my rugby friends were like, we go to this camps ministry and they feed you and they're pretty cool. And I was like, I guess that's another way for me to hang out with my friends because that's what I like to do. But I don't remember how I got in the door to this because I went to, I was not Methodist when I came to Western.
So they shamed you at the doorstep because you weren't Methodist. They shamed, like, get out of here.
Yeah. So I went to this campus ministry, the Wesley Foundation at WCU. And I don't know how I got there. I don't remember walking down the sidewalk. I don't remember leaving my dorm room, but I do remember getting there and wondering what the heck I even thought I was doing. But from the get-go, the people there made eye contact, like, remembered your name and cared that you showed up, which is such like an odd thing to like remember and to like point out. But I had been allowed to blend in and to be ignored for so many years. And so when people were interested in the fact that I showed up, and then I didn't owe them anything when I came in the door. They were just happy I showed up. They let me worship there. They let me do the fun things. There wasn't a price tag as far as like what I had to give them in order to be loved by them.
I heard that comes after you start making a living.
Yeah. It's like you have to recruit 6 people to join the ministry. And then they each have to recruit 6 people. Well, Gibby, you've said the fact that you're like a lesbian doesn't really complicate your faith or your friendships because like they're unrelated and like your sexuality is a non-issue when it comes to your faith. But you've also said that you felt like you didn't quite fit in your surroundings in high school, and you later figured out that was because of compulsory heterosexuality, which is a term I'd never heard of before you mentioned it. And so could you explain what exactly that is and how you experienced it?
It is a term that I think when I've done my own research, was coined in 1980 by a writer named Adrian Rich. That's what I know. But so compulsory heterosexuality describes this phenomena of when the culture that surrounds you is aggressively heteronormative, when that's the only option presented to you. And if you don't engage in that part of your culture, you are then left out. It is strong enough in many places in our society and in the world that a person can subconsciously repress the fact that they are homosexual. And that's what happened to me. I grew up in a really loving home. And I've never been someone who's been in a position where I had the risk of being homeless or abused if I came out. But as I was going through puberty and experiencing middle school and high school, which is when a lot of people kind of start to come to those realizations, I was seeing a lot of my peers who came out as LGBTQ of any kind be bullied and harassed and in many ways hurt by being themselves. There have been instances of people dying by suicide in the county where I'm from because it can be that harsh of a place to grow up. And so I saw this, and before it ever occurred to me that that would ever be an option for me, it had already been presented to me that it is not something that I can do. It was not allowed in my faith because that was a discussion that was pretty common at the time, and it was not going to be allowed by my peers. And so compulsory heterosexuality was the thing that helped me kind of survive that environment and what allowed me to kind of not worry about it until I was in a safer place to even acknowledge that about myself. But it also comes with a lot of stuff to unpack. It can really disconnect a person from themselves and who they love and how they love. And so that's been a lot of personal unpacking because I didn't realize that I was gay until I left my community. Until I went to college and was allowed to just kind of think through things myself, but also be exposed to other just as educated opinions because where I come from is rural and it is a small town, but the people there are not uneducated and they had educated reasons for why they thought homosexuality was a sin. And what I needed was exposure to people who were just as educated, who did not believe those things.
Didn't you say you tried to date some guys just because you thought that's what you were supposed to be doing?
Yeah, what dating I did do in high school or crushes that I had were all on people who either I did it because I just thought I had to. There was a time where a dude said he had a crush on me, and my thought process after learning the information was, okay, now I'm supposed to date him.
Well, this is
Because
what the
that's what
instruction
he
book
did.
says.
That's what I thought. That's how it worked. And my peers around, I was like, well, I guess this is how this is supposed to happen. And I was pretty unhappy until that eventually ended. And then after that, subconsciously, all of my crushes were people that were unattainable to me for different reasons, whether they were people who would never like me back. And so that was fine. Or they were people on the internet that I would never ever meet. Or just, fictional characters that you don't ever have to worry about meeting in real life. And it's a qualitative phenomenon, but it is something that's supported by evidence. It is a really common thing that happens to young queer and gay people in communities where being gay or queer or trans is not something that is safely available to explore.
But I mean, it sounds like you're going through a pretty tough journey of like self-discovery and trying to help yourself and others understand who you were. And you may have already covered this, but how did it impact your feelings about religious participation?
Me being a lesbian has never been something that has affected my faith. My crises of faith has been in trying to exist in a religious community where it doesn't seem like people are loving each other the way that God loves us. And so that has been the most painful thing, is seeing churches fail at their job and fail intentionally or fail in ways that they shouldn't. But being a lesbian and being a Christian has been something that's been really easy to mesh because God loves me. Point blank.
So there's not a situation maybe where you came out and people treated you differently or something like that?
No, I think part of that might be that people haven't had the chance. I don't know that a lot of conservative people who would argue that with me have really had the chance to know that about me. And as far as the other folks in my life, they have either come to terms with it themselves. They either have changed their minds as I have realized things are different, or they have figured out ways to keep me in their lives because I cannot change. This isn't a choice. This isn't something I choose. I don't choose to make things more difficult for myself.
Come on, life was too easy, you know.
Yeah.
Like you were just trying to.
You were looking for a challenge.
Yeah. And so if people aren't able to accept that, then that's their problem. I can't fix that for them.
Well, and Gibby, we're just really happy that you found this faith community here. But unfortunately, there are some other members of the LGBTQ community who weren't as they weren't able to find a faith setting. And you said you have a pretty special role in helping them all feel welcome in a faith setting. And could you just tell us a little bit more about what that role is?
Well, yeah, I can tell you what I try to do.
Okay.
And what I try to do is make the Bible and faith and worship accessible to people in my community who have otherwise been really hurt by it. So one of the things that I have done a lot of research on in order to share with my friends has been learning more about what the Bible says about homosexuality. And I sometimes worry that my answers and that my solutions for kind of handling these things are a little bit too simplistic. And I'm sure there are people who might listen to this from home and think that I don't answer it well. But I break it down into two things. If it's in the Old Testament, I am not a Christian or a sect of Christian or of any other kind of faith that subscribes to Old Testament laws. They don't apply to me. And so I don't see why any of the other laws about homosexuality or marriage should apply to me. And then as far as the New Testament goes, there's really only about one Bible verse that talks about it. And there's a lot of things in the New Testament. Everything about the Bible is very contextual. And there's a lot of things in the New Testament that you have to take in context. If you look at Roman and Greek homosexuality during that time, first of all, the word in the Bible that is talking about homosexuality originally and currently still translates to pedophile. It became homosexual in the Bible in the 50s or 60s when a German translation changed that word. And so most of our current research and discussions around homosexuality come from a fairly recent vocabulary change in the Bible. And gay people and people part of the LGBTQ community are not pedophiles, and they're not gross, and there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing predatory about having equal, appropriate same-sex relationship with another person. And so that has been a big part of what I do as someone who is gay and Christian, is kind of helping people unpack that. So when they meet their conservative relatives or friends or people on the street, they can know, at least for themselves, that there's nothing wrong with them.
We know, Gibby, there's a steady decline in church involvement these days. And like, do you have any idea on like how we can, like how the church can become more relevant to younger people and like people who have felt unwelcomed in the church?
Yeah, there has been a decline in the church a lot recently, and it's been a lot of young people leaving, and not just people that are part of the LGBTQ community. I think the big improvement that churches as a whole can do is to put their money where their mouth is. And I mean that kind of literally, in the sense of the church has been really good at, for a long time, talking about how we need to love people, about constantly pushing the rhetoric of treating people well and taking care of people and improving our communities. But often not necessarily the money, because often even the money will be there sometimes, but what isn't there is the heart and the hands to get that work done. People would rather kind of throw their money at an issue or not engage in an issue because it's too difficult and too hard for them to worry about. They just want someone else to handle it for them. But if we really want to be like Jesus and we really want to take that role on in the world, one of the only things Jesus did was constantly engage with difficult people that he probably didn't want to talk to. And he loved them and he gave them chances. There are many disciples, there are many people Jesus met with that people had really kind of either given up on or didn't want to deal with. And so I understand that there is a certain level of boundaries and emotional self-care that we have to take on if we are going to be involved in ministry. There do have to be boundaries set. You can't always allow people to take from you and never face consequences when they're being dishonest or unkind. But that comes with the job of being like Jesus, is it means that you forgive and love unkind and difficult people.
Yeah, it is.
And what I think you're saying too is, it's not easy. And that, like, Jesus set this example of, like, you can't just sit back and wait for people to come on in and everything, you got to get out and know people, and people are people. It's going to be, sometimes it's hard, and sometimes people are different than other people. And like, that's what makes the world go around. And,
Hmm.
Yeah.
See, that's why, Gibby, I'm glad you're on the case as a pastor with this money where your mouth is approach. And after you graduated from college, you did a year on staff at a local United Methodist church in a campus ministry. And how did that kind of shape the way you approached church and this method you told us about of helping others and putting your money where your mouth is?
It's really raised my expectations and my standards, what I know communities are capable of. The church and the campus ministry I worked for are really wonderful and filled with wonderful people who want to care. They're not perfect people, and I'm not a perfect person. And we also work with and help a lot of imperfect people. But it's really beautiful to know that you can all count on each other to do your best and to do your best by other people. It's also really given me an appreciation, but also an expectation of long-term ministries when you are a church or campus ministry, because if the church, a local church or a local group is not committed to long-term solutions and being continuously involved in their community, then they're already kind of setting themselves up for failure and the inability to show people that they are loved by the church. I have worked at several places, and that has been what has made them so wonderful, is when they have long-term ministries where they are continuously involved in ramp building and making people's homes accessible to them, when they are involved in things like Meals on Wheels and firewood production and delivery, and in summer reading camps and things that improve the community and answer whatever needs are there, because that will change in different communities. But if there is no long-term involvement, that's where you start to see people with enough time on their hands to become more politically motivated in what they do at the church and how things work. And so those things have become musts. I must work with people who are loving and kind. I must work with people who are committed long term to what they do.
There's a lot of people, like we were talking earlier, that have either had no experience for whatever reasons or bad experience with the church, and like church, it doesn't feel safe to them at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we have to change that. How can faith communities like facilitate a safe way for people to be involved? Like how can they kind of start to change the way they look to people who are kind of like afraid to even set their foot in the door?
There's a lot of different ways, because there's a lot of different people. One of the things that I've really learned over the last few years is that the church and we, because this includes me when I'm talking about the church, cannot expect people who have been hurt to just get over it.
Right.
Yeah, because that continues this cycle of, you have to worship how I worship, so then we're all doing the right thing. You have to look like me, I have to look like you, that kind of mentality. And so when we meet people who have been burned by the church and been wounded like that, you have to just allow them to be angry, and maybe they will never come in the church ever. And I have friends that never will, and I don't fault them for it. And they don't have to come to church to be loved. And so that's the first part of the church acknowledging, yes, we have been part of this system that has hurt you, and we're sorry, and we're not going to expect you to show up, but we will love you in any way that we can. And so then from there, you become actively affirming, or the church should be actively affirming. In my personal life, it's not enough for someone to just kind of be lukewarm about whether or not they love me and support me. And I understand if some people aren't able to get there. But if you can't clearly love me for all of me, and in that way, then I hope that they will release that and just move on with their lives. If a church is willing to kind of actively say that they love other people and that all are welcome, and then when those people show up, they are welcome, then then that's when we'll know that things are really starting to come around and the church is going to do better.
Amen.
I mean, it sounds like you got it all figured out, like Gibby's 3-step guide to inclusivity, right? Step 1, being a leader in a church. So then step 0, you got to find a job. So then step
Yep.
-1, going to div school, which takes a lot of time and resources. And it's a big decision that you have committed to. And you said that your experience at the Hinton Rural Life Center, with an emphasis on rural, has really helped with that decision process. So what did Hinton do that led you to Duke Divinity School?
So I went, this was before I realized I wanted to come back to ministry. And I was looking for a summer job. And my campus minister at the time and some other people were like, here's this really cool internship for people that want to go into ministry. And I applied for it and got sent to Hinton Rural Life Center to serve there. And while I was there, they just provided another form of ministry. It helped me see that the ministry and the love that I was experiencing in Cullowhee, North Carolina, at Cullowhee United Methodist Church and at the Wesley Foundation at WCU was not unique to there. That is what makes those places unique, but that is not only found there. It can be found in other communities. And so when I went to the Hinton Rural Life Center, I saw that those people who worked there and continue to work there are also just as committed to loving other people where they are at. It's very important to us who work here, because I'm working there again during this time, that we just do what we can for our neighbors, and we look at our neighbors and understand that things happen. They are complicated like we are, and maybe they've made mistakes that have gotten them there, but there are also a lot of things outside of their control that have put them in a position where their porch is falling through and they need a new one and they can't afford it, or they haven't been able to take care of their yard in months. And instead of wondering why they can't handle it, we just show up and do what we can. And it allows them to know that they are important and loved, because they don't have to earn that support. They deserve it because they are wonderful people and creations just like we are.
And that's like what you're describing to me is like where love intersects with poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's an amazing crossroad to be in.
Well, and all that work sounds truly, it's really rewarding work. But what it doesn't sound like is like this experience to go, like the Hinton gave you to go to divinity school, was like this beam of light coming down. The phrase, like, it came down to me in a beam of light. Is that true? Like, is that what going to divinity school, do you have to have that to go?
No, it's been really interesting to go on this journey of ordination and following my call and doing all of those things. Is we're all doing it differently. I've been lucky enough to have some really like big moments or small moments that I only recognize as big moments in hindsight.
Big impact.
Yeah. Where I look back and go, wait a minute, God was absolutely telling me what I should be doing. And so in that way, I've been really blessed to have that. But there are lots of other people who are just doing it later in life. There's a lot of people who become pastors who do it as a second career. And so it's a journey for everyone, and you follow it when you can. And, you know, the really beautiful thing about all of that is God's ready and God can make it work. Hopefully we listen the first time, because then it means we can spend more time doing stuff that we love, that we're meant to do. But if not, then God and that faith are always there. And so it's been beautiful to walk alongside people who are getting ordained around the same time as me, and meet other people kind of on this journey, and how all of us experience it differently.
You know, as you're kind of entering this the seminary experience, but also this faith forming experience and faith kind of stretching place that you're at, you know, are you thinking about the future of the church? Like where can we find hope in that? We hear so much bad stuff about the church. Like, where's the hope?
In all the right places, I think.
I think And Garth Brooks
Perfect
said that.
answer.
Yeah.
And Garth Brooks in all the right places. I think hope is a little bit different for everyone. We all experience that differently. We all find motivation and support from different places. I know for me, the hope for me has been meeting people older than me who see the change happening in the church now, who see people like me trying to get ordained and to step forward in this, who believe in us and know that it's our time to be there. It's the hope in my generation and seeing how much we care about each other and what's going on in our world, that maybe we have a chance to turn this around and keep generations after us from being hurt in the ways that we have. And so that's where I find my hope. And the biggest hope, I think, not to sound too churchy, is that God is always there. That no matter what we do as humans to screw things up colossally, that God will make things right. It doesn't excuse the bad things that happen in our world. It doesn't make them any easier to deal with, other than maybe it doesn't happen for a reason, but something good can come out of it. We can be better. We can do better. We can all do that.
Yeah, Adam.
Well said.
And just starting with an easy 7-step process, and the first step being getting your wallet out.
You can cut that.
Yeah.
Make the check out to the Inside Podcasters.
Yeah, God said so.
Yeah.
All right, that money that I'm gonna make for sure.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool though, coming from a woman who not too long ago was feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, Gibby, as you may know, as one of our biggest fans, sometimes we do a quick surprise question at the end here in the form of a speed round. And this interview is no exception to the rule, alrighty? So we got a fresh set of questions for you. You got to answer as quickly as you can. Sound good?
All right, I'll do it.
All right, here we go. Hammer or nail gun?
Hammer.
Alrighty.
Be late to work or be late to the Inside Podcast interview?
Be late to the podcast interview.
That's all right. Would you rather ride a jet ski with a lion or go skydiving with a tiger?
Jet ski with a lion. I hate heights.
Okay.
Star Wars or Marvel?
This is a good question. They
Speed
both have
round.
their merits
Speed
and
round.
very well
Speed round, come on, give me it.
interesting and
Answer it.
original.
What was the answer?
Yeah.
Both.
That's lame. That's the lamest answer.
TikTok or Instagram?
TikTok.
Okay.
Excuse me. I'm cleaning the vomit up. Burl Ives or Don Knotts?
Oh, dang. Don Knotts.
All right. Would you rather be the interspecies pet of a gorilla or a shark?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you rather be the...
Would I rather be a gorilla's pet or a shark's pet?
Yes.
Yeah.
A shark's pet.
Ooh, okay.
Skydive or scuba dive?
Scuba dive. Yeah, scuba dive.
All
I want
right.
to know what's in the ocean.
Scuba dive with a lion or a tiger?
As their pet.
Yeah, as their
Oh my
as their
God.
interspecies
As their
pet. All right, the ghost or Mr. Chicken?
The ghost.
Okay.
Oh man, I thought you'd pick Mr. Chicken because you chose Don Knotts earlier. Okay, grown up Jesus or 8-pound 6-ounce baby Jesus?
The junior size.
8 pound 6 ounce baby Jesus.
All
Why?
right.
Because he throws further?
He's like a little cheeseburger, man.
Exactly. That's a big cheeseburger. 8-pound cheeseburger?
8 pound 6 ounce cheeseburger.
That's better than a 160-pound cheeseburger.
I guess. Well, anyway, regardless. Gibby, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was a blast to have you on.
Yeah, I thank you guys for having me. This has
It
been
was
awesome.
fun. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll catch you later, all right?
All right, y'all take care.
Later, Giblet.
All right, I'm hanging up.
Bye-bye.
Well, Jay, what an awesome interview, man. I mean, she just crushed it. And I know the secrets to being on your top young people's list now.
Ah, that's all I can say.
I'm just really excited she's becoming a pastor, man. I think the church, spiritual faith community just needs a lot more people like her, and it's that kind of outlook and attitude that's going to basically save the church for years to come. This kind of community that she's really purposely building for others, that's pretty sustainable for like the long run. Which I don't know. I'm just super excited about like what she's going to be doing for the church in the next couple years.
Yeah, I think just bringing a lot more diversity in the leadership and things like that is super important. I really enjoyed thinking about kind of the big picture of this, like her journey from just a kid and the things and the hardships that she's gone through and the way she's developing herself and just allowing herself to let kind of the development happen, and the way she looks at people and how everyone is valuable. A lot of times I have to remind myself of how young she is, relatively speaking, because she's much more worldly and much more mature in her thinking of people than, people that are more than half or double her age,
Right. Like you.
Who's probably 2.5 times her age. Yeah.
Well, you think that wraps it up for today, man?
Yeah, that was awesome, and I want to just wrap it right there.
Alrighty, well, that was The Inside. Again, Gibby's Instagram is at glib.gibb. We'll have some links below to some of the resources like the Hinton Center that helped her along the way. Special thanks to our guest today, Rachel Gibby, and our producer, Dave. The show is written, recorded, edited, and co-produced by Jay and myself. And our title music, Crossroads, was written by Rock Sounds, and we'll have a link in the show description for that. Our title music was performed by Keith Richards. Do you know someone you think should be on The Inside? Send us an email with some suggestions. We'll have some more episodes coming soon, so make sure to listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at The Inside Podcasters, or feel free to shoot us an email at theinsidepodcasters@gmail.com.
Keep your answers to 1 minute or less. You got it?
Okay. Don't even want you on this podcast. It's the hope in my generation and seeing how much we care about each other and what's going on in our world that maybe we have a chance to turn this around and keep generations after us from being hurt in the ways that we have. And so that's where I find my hope.
I used to hate carbonated water, but I discovered after a long hot day on the job site, there's nothing more refreshing in the mouth than slugging down a can of Sylvia Cam.